What's up, guys? Back with another episode of Hook's Garage. So tonight we have 27 Model T Speedster Coupe. As of a couple weeks ago, this old girl had been parked since near as we can tell 1984, already being nearly 100 years old. Not really asking much of these cars to actually get them running, but it was sold thinking the motor was seized up. So when you grabbed the crank handle and tried to turn it, nothing. Thankfully, these vehicles have a two-part starter. It has a motor on the engine side and a Bendix on the passenger side, or the cab side. Got it loose, and there you are. So I'm gonna give you guys a video of kind of an abbreviated startup. Now, things that you would do now on a 100-year-old car are a little more in depth than what somebody in a rush, if anyone was in a rush back in the day, would have probably done to start this Model T. This is still pretty abbreviated, but I'll give you guys a rough idea of what you can look at. First things first is oil. Model T must have lubrication. Of interest, they don't have oil pumps. They have a splash system that lubricates the entire works. And everything is pretty much lubricated, right? You've got your drive bands, your clutch, your reverse, all in the transmission, or also known as the hogshead. And that is a splash lubrication system on the oil pan. So you can almost see the cutouts for the crank journals there. So the oil pan will, or the crank rather, will splash and lubricate the entire engine. Extremely simple. So you have two petcocks here, unless you've upgraded with something a little more advanced. The top petcock, if you rotate it, you're gonna see oil just drip out. That tells you that your oil is serviced to the top petcock. You don't want it to run out, just drip. If it runs out, that means you've put in too much. Here on the lower petcock, just briefly, I don't want to waste oil. See how that ran in a steady stream? That means that lower petcock is completely serviced. So you want the oil between top and bottom, ideally just coming out the top. Big one you got to check. All right, moving up. Okay, so here is the hood. You got two latches that hold two-side hood, and there's a lot of different ways to do the hood. Some guys like to fold it and lay it. This is very tough steel, even though it feels flexible. I don't like being that rough on the old girl, so I typically just let it rest like that. Don't start it with it resting like that because it will fall and scrape things up. So here's a fuel petcock. Now it's currently in the on position. I did just run it, but we're gonna turn it down, and when it's cold, you're gonna hear fuel flow down the tube to the carburetor. This is a gravity-fed updraft carburetor. What's kind of cool about it, very difficult to flood a carburetor like this since it works on the engine updraft. So to prime it, you're gonna have to, it's already been primed, but you would pull the grill side choke lever, which is here. And while pulling that back up, first thing you need to do before you prime it, make sure your ignition is off. On the earlier T's, you have a three-way switch here. So on the earlier T's before the 20s, this switch actually covered your battery, your magneto, or off. On sometime in the 20s, this is actually now your headlight switch. So dim, off, on. And then the key in the middle actually covers battery on this side, magneto on this side. You want it vertical, up and down. That means you're not going to get any power to the engine when you try to start it, because when you prime it, if it fired, it could break your arm. It could blow back on you. If you can take the key out, then you know you're in the off position. All right, so the priming procedure, I'm not going to hold the choke. Only time you'll use your right hand on the start, but I have two hands, one's holding the camera. So you pull that choke lever out, give her 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is what I do. Every T is different. Some do 3. What that does with the choke on is it's actually updrafting fuel into the head. All right, next we are gonna actually try to start it. Make sure, really you should do this as a first step. Make sure you're in the handbrake position. So if I go here, that's neutral. Back here, that is the handbrake. Okay, so we're gonna do a magneto start. You got a couple options on Model Ts. Right about 1919, they started putting electric starters and everything. That's right here. It'll run whether the key is on or off, in gear or not in gear. So be cautious of that. So to do an electric start, you would just put it in the left position. The key on mine is kind of fiddly. There we go. Now you hear the points firing, and then you'd set your spark full retard all the way up. You're going to set your throttle open just a little bit, 2 or 3 notches. We're actually going to do a magneto start, and the reason I'm going to show you that is magneto start requires a little bit of advance on the spark. So we're going to go down just about that far, rotate our key to the Magneto side. Notice we're not hearing the points. Then we're going to set our throttle just open. I double check the handbrake. All right, I'm going to be bad. I'm going to use my right hand. Use your left when you do it. Give her another crank here. And one more crank. No luck. That's okay. I've been sitting a little bit. So now we can demonstrate an electric start. So now we'll go to the battery side here. Now you do not want to start on advanced spark on the battery side. So we're going to put that spark back to full retard. Never go full retard except for this. Throttle just open. Step on the electric starter. Still doesn't want to start. So the last little tip, you've got your choke lever. You also have your enrich and lean mixture for the carb. You can adjust left or right. Full right is the normal position. So while starting, we're going to pull out on the choke, step on the, there she goes. All right, and that's it. Once she starts, we'll bring the throttle to idle. We're going to advance the spark just a little bit till she smooths out. There you go. That is starting a Model T. Very abbreviated.